Today we're going to talk about P6-QA tool and how it can help you make better, more robust schedules for your organization. I'm Ian Nicholson. I'm VP Solutions at Emerald Associates. I have over 25 years experience in various industries. Um, I've worked in oil and gas, power, transportation, mining, and a whole bunch of other industries. And one of the things that I'm often asked to do in my role is to review people's schedules. And one of the things that comes up continuously is that um, people can't fix what they don't know. And there's a surprising amount of people in the industry who really don't understand what makes a good schedule. And what we're trying to do here is we're trying to make it so people can do a better job. Now, during the session, you will be muted, but there is a question section in the utility you're running on. If you'd like to chat any questions, we'll make sure we get them answered at the end of the session. Joining me today is Sue Familia. Sue's in our Wyoming office. Sue also has 25 years of experience working with project management in various industries. Sue will be actually demonstrating the tool today, so she'll be doing all the hard work while I just talk. Um, And one of Sue's roles in a past life was to make sure that the people she worked with were putting out quality schedules. It's something that she found quite frustrating, which I'm sure she'll elaborate on in her part of the talk. So let's talk a bit about the struggles that people have when they're working with their schedules. So the first one is a lot of times people don't really know what quality is. Is quality standards and attitudes? Is it experience and skills that makes quality? Is it something where you collaborate and build trust within your project team? Or is it ultimately just the end product that matters? So it gives you more time on tools. Well, I'd argue that it's all of them. I mean, we have to have standards so that we can judge things against each other. We need people to get experience and gain experience. We need the project team to have trust in the schedule that we prepare for them. Now, when you're talking specifically about P6, what are we talking about when we talk about quality? Well, there's an old project manager's joke that says, you can have your project good, you can have it fast, you can have it cheap. The only catch is that you can only pick or you can only pick two of the three. So one of them has to be given up in order to maximize the other two. Well, when you're dealing with schedules, it's fairly similar. With our schedules, we have timing, which is our time frame or our Gantt. We have our resources and we have our costs. And just like our old project manager's joke, you can't change one without changing the other two. So what we really need is we need to understand those interdependencies between time, resource, and costs. Now, we need to have reliable and consistent schedules across our organization. So one of the things that we often get asked is, I've got all this great data in P6, but I need to get that information into a corporate dashboard. I need to be able to give managers something that they can look at and understand without having to go through hundreds of pages of Gantt charts, which no manager ever wants to do. So um, one of the things that often happens when we're dealing with this is we find that, scheduler A is doing it one way, scheduler B on a different project is doing it another way, and they both think they're doing the best job that they can do. Um, but what happens is there's no consistency there, and so that missing consistency makes it virtually impossible for us to compare two or more schedules to each other. So one of the things that we really need to be able to do is we need to be able to make sure that everybody is aligned in the way that they do their best practices. Now, there's lots of information out there about what's best practices in the industry, but if we can't even get two schedulers working for the same company to do things the same way, we're a long way off our standardization that we need in order to get good dashboards. We also need to be able um, to review bottlenecks in the process. Now, um, this comes about again because we don't have standardization or we're missing information that we need. So what we really need to do is we need to be able to set our schedules up so that anything that's missing information can be found very quickly. Um, so it could be that someone hasn't submitted progress or we haven't rescheduled. And so we've got one or two projects that aren't aligned in a time basis with all of the others. These are all things that we need to be able to flag and to get on top of very quickly. We need to make sure we adhere to a standard business process. Now, I talked a little before about, what's industry best practice, but maybe within our business, we need certain standard processes. So, we want everyone to use a certain project code or a certain activity code or fill in a certain user defined field because we're going to use that as as a major um, indicator that we're going to use on our dashboards. Well, if it's not filled in, everything falls apart. So the idea in P6-QA is we can define what information people must have, and if it's missing, it'll get flagged. And we have a lot of flexibility in how you define that. Now, historically, what people have done when they're concerned about their schedule quality is they've brought in a third-party consultant or some software. The problem with that is that that third party consultant comes in and they're quite expensive, and you know um, they come in and they do a review and they tell everybody that they've done a bad job and then they leave. That's what sometimes is called seagull management, because you fly in, you crap all over everything, and you fly out again. um, Similarly, we could have a tool that exports data out of P6 and does some analysis, but that's very tedious and time consuming. And again, only one or two people in the organization is going to do it. So what we really want to have is we want to have something that works right within P6. So me as a user, if I'm doing something um, poorly, it's immediately going to tell me, hey, what this thing that you're doing is not aligned with the corporate requirements. As a scheduler, that gives me an opportunity to fix it myself. So it becomes a training thing where everybody is automatically learning all the time because the system's prompting them to fix issues that they have in their schedule, as opposed to somebody comes in every quarter and does a full review of your schedule. Now, the benefits are huge. As I mentioned before, you end up with people getting trained as they go. They start to learn about what's best practice. And we can define ranges of what's acceptable. So we can start off by defining some fairly loose ranges, and then we can tighten the fences or pull in the variance that we'll accept. So as people get better at it, we can start improving the metrics that we're working with. So again, the huge advantage is that our users are learning as they go. We're making sure that we're flagging things that they need to do. So let's talk a little bit about how P6QA works. So the first thing is we have a schedule quality section. So that looks for the standard things. Are we missing logic? Do we have strange logic types like SF relationships? Do we have excessive leads or lags? Are our durations inconsistent or outside the range of what we consider to be acceptable? Do we have constraints? Do we have resources where we need costs and we don't have them? Are things not getting updated the way we expect them to get updated? All those things are fairly standard schedule quality indicators. And in fact, there's a number of industry standards out there that look for these kind of things. So there's the DCMA standard, there's the GAO, General Accounting Office standards. And these standards look for all the things that you'd expect. They look for, missing logic, leads, lags, constraints, float issues, long durations, missing assignments, progress that doesn't line up, all that sort of thing. AACE adds a couple more things that they think are important, and they drop a couple that maybe that should be there. And PMI also has their own standard. So everybody's got slightly different industry standards. And with P6QA, you can choose whichever of these you want to use, and then you can build on top of it if there's certain things that you really think are important to your scheduling crew. Now, we also have business process indicators. Now, I mentioned this before. The idea is that we can require users to have certain information at the project level, at the activity level, and at the resource and expense level. So, why is that important? Well, as I mentioned before, maybe I've got a dashboard that I want to be able to let managers see. And what I need is I need some standardized coding across this information so that when I actually pull that dashboard together, I'm comparing apples to apples. One of the things that often happens when people do develop dashboards is that they find that the people they thought were superstar schedulers actually aren't that great. And some of the people that maybe they thought weren't doing a great job actually are doing really well, and it's all because the way the reporting is set up, it's not comparing apples to apples. So some people look better and some people look worse. By aligning everything and making sure that we've got these standard requirements, we bring everything into alignment. Now, you can have different corporate standards for different project types. So you've got your CapEx projects, your OpEx projects, your shutdown turnaround projects. Maybe you have IT projects, or you've got some high level, long range projects. And all of those can have different requirements depending on how you're going to report out of them. So we're able to do that as well. Now, the other thing is that maybe you've got different standards at the proposal phase and different standards once a project is approved and being executed. So again, at the proposal stage, you typically don't have a very detailed schedule. You may have some high level reports that you want to put out about, what's our backlog look like? What's the probability of success on this particular proposal? And you can use that to again create a kind of dashboard specifically around proposals as opposed to the dashboard that you might run when you've got your in-flight projects. Now, we've also added some new checks. We've got things like calendar checks, statistics checks, logic detail checks, which are all available within the tool, and Sue's going to show those in some detail as we go through. So let's take a look. So Sue, I'm going to make you the presenter.
Thanks, Ian. Good morning, everyone. I am going to go ahead and share my screen so I can show you the tool in action. And there we go. I think you should be able to see my screen now. Um, so I am actually at the project level here, and I'm showing an EPS level kind of snapshot of the schedule quality indicators that we have available. And so we're looking at a bunch of projects here, and they've been run with P6-QA. That the tool has been run on them, and essentially you can see pretty easily where there are problems and where there are not. So obviously, red is not good. Green is good. And in some cases, we don't see any here, but we do have a yield sign that indicates a warning. So essentially, this lets you know very quickly on a visual level how well you're doing. So P6-QA can be run in several different ways. So first of all, I can manually run P6-QA. Um, first of all, I can choose which projects I actually want to run QA on. Maybe you've got some inactive projects that you're no longer running. You no longer have the need for QA to run, and maybe you do have some active projects that you are. So you set it as a yes or no, and if it's blank, of course, that's a no as well. So if I want to run manually, meaning that I can run it on the fly, so to speak, all I need to do is clear out my date here where it says last run. And that's going to indicate to P6-QA that I want it to pick up this project immediately and rerun my my checks that I have set for P6-QA. Now, another thing that I can do is I can schedule these. I can run them on different frequencies. So if I'm maybe working on a turnaround project, I might want to run it hourly or daily. Maybe I'm working on a little bit lengthier projects. I could run it weekly, monthly, and then of course I can do it manually. So as I am working, let's say if I'm building out a project, I'm creating it and I'm putting in all those things I need for uh, to build my project, I could actually run P6QA as I'm going and kind of check to make sure that as I'm building out my project that my quality indicators are going well. Um, I can tell the last time a project was run on QA because I am getting this last run date here. So it's going to give you the date and time that QA was last run on it. Now, um, the one that I just cleared out is rerunning, and of course, I'm not going to have any changes because I haven't changed anything at this point. But when I refresh this, if P6QA has brought it up, it's going to repopulate that information as to when it was last done. So we can have different timings for different schedules, obviously. It might make sense if you have maybe different types of schedules in your database, um, turnarounds, capital programs, and and the such and the like. So when we are looking at these, you can see this is schedule quality that I'm showing right now. And as I go across the top, I can see how each check is measuring up in my project. So these items here are configurable. I can look at, the durations, the float, the logic, and all that, but I may have a tolerance for each one of these and may want to, depending on maybe even the type of the project or whether I am scheduling it or whether I'm actually in progress with my project, I could set these accordingly. Now, the way that we do that is we have metrics that we can actually take a look at. So, if I look at the criteria, and this is just another layout that's going to show the criteria that are available for each one of these checks. Um, and this is what's going to key my red, yellow, or green flags. So, and in the case of the duration, um, let's just take a look at this project here. I have a tolerance. So I have this is saying 5% um, of my of the activities in my project. So 5 out of 100. If it is more than that, I want to see a red flag. If it's less, um, green is okay. Now, I also, in conjunction with this, I need to define what do we consider a high duration. And these are done in hours because that's how P6 actually stores time is in hours. So I would set the tolerance as to what my for this project or for projects overall, what is that high duration? What do I consider a high duration? And then I can go ahead and do that with each one of my checks. Now, as I go along with my project, I can actually set different tolerances, as you can see, for each one of my projects. So maybe as I move along and start progressing my project, maybe my tolerance goes up or down, depending on what the check is. Maybe as I get to the end of my project, maybe I want to tighten up some of these hours and things like that. So I essentially just can go in and I can change these. So maybe my high duration as I move along is now a little bit less. So maybe I want to put that at a lower uh, tolerance. Now, I can build these into, if you use the idea of templates or maybe a copy and paste of a template project, I can set these per project and those are actually automatically going to come in. So when I'm going to build my project, I have some standards that are going to be used. I could, and then on each, depending on the type of project, I could set these individually with each one of those templates, and it's automatically going to be coming in with those particular tolerances. Now, if I'm not using templates, we default those values in, and we'll determine what those default values are when we set up the tool for you. So once I change either the uh, the tolerances or the settings, I may want to rerun again, or as I am going through and uh, getting my project and maybe building my project, I could also again rerun it. So I can self critique as I go along, and I can see how I'm doing and how those metrics are measuring up. Now, we also provide with each run an report. So I'm just going to go down into my schedule quality one since that's what we're looking at right now. And this report is essentially going to give me a breakdown of how each one of my metrics has measured up. And what I can do here is I can see that I what my target is set at, and I didn't rerun this or yet, so I don't have that target hasn't changed, but I can see some percentages in here as well as to how close I am to being to making the mark. So in the case of this open ends piece here, I can see that I have 5 activities that are not that have an open end. And so that's actually 15.62% of my activities in my project. Now I'm going to go into the activity screen in just a moment, and I what I can do is I can, let's say I have my uh, either start milestone or my finish milestone that are open ended. I can flag those and let P6-QA know, I've looked at this. This is okay, and this is kind of an anomaly. So I can mark that. So it doesn't continue to, I guess, ding me on my tolerance. And so with those blue stars, I'm going to get a remaining percentage as well. And so I can still see actually how many activities I have that are not adhering, but I can also see which ones, how many I have remaining after I've, kind of analyzed my other ones. And as I go down into my report here, I can see a little bit more granularly what is, how my percentages, of course, and I can also see the activities which are not compliant. So I can go in, I can take a look at these, and I can, analyze and figure out what, I can go fix them essentially. Now, I just don't have the report on its own to be looking at that. I can also go in and I can open up my project, and I can go to my activity level, and that activity level is going to show me by each for each activity which one is adhering and which one is not. And this is taking just a moment here. There we go. So I'm just going to move this over here. And let me go to a different layout. Actually, no, this is the layout I want. So as I look at this, I can see which ones have logic and which ones that is not open ended, and I can see which ones maybe need to be fixed. So you can see this blue star here, and this is on my finish uh, milestone. So I've analyzed this at this point and said, hey, this is okay to have an open end. So I can go ahead and put a blue star, and P6-QA is going to take that into consideration when it gives me my percentages. On these other ones, I could actually go in and I could take a look at my relationships. I can uh, fix those if needed. And of course, we only want two activities with open ends, and so I can go in and I can assign that, and I can let's see if I can get this done here. And I could add that. I could fix the other ones that I have, and this is really a pain when this there we go. And then I could rerun my validation and check to see, did I miss any? Did I not? Things like that. So I can also display, which ones don't have predecessors, which ones don't have successors, and analyze it in that manner. I can take a look at my leads and my lags, and see if I have any long lags. These all can be defined within my criteria that I set up. I can also check things like logic. Maybe the majority of my projects, I want to see a finish to start relationship on those on activities between activities. I want to look for that start to finish logic. What is going on? Do I have any of those? Those are a little rare, and maybe even my organization does not allow a start to finish type of relationship. I can define my high durations. I can take a look at my hard and soft constraints. Where do I have those? Where are those existing? And um, as I'm planning, I'm going to want to be sure that I flag whether I have resources assigned, or maybe even expenses if I want to take a look at that. So on those schedule quality metrics, these are the ones that our industry standards would be taking a look at, or any that I maybe want to look at as a company. I can take a look at those, and I can make sure that I am in compliance with each one of those. Now, in the way of business processes, I'm just going to change again my layout here so we can look at some of the business processes that we have. Um, I may have different business processes for each one of for my organization. And I could set those up here. So perhaps there's a certain type of format that I like to see, or that we are expecting to see in our activity name, or our activity ID. I can set up that pattern, and I can go in and I can check to see what kind of pattern that it's adhering. Maybe you're getting schedules from an outside source, and you have some guidelines or some specifications that you have set out for that contractor about, this is what we want the activity ID format to look like. I can check that. Um, I want to check for duplicate activity names. Um, as a best practice, you probably don't want to have activity names that are the same. This just helps with your reporting to keep it consistent, so that, let's say you have you're going to replace some valves in a certain piece of equipment, and you don't want all of your activity names to say replace valve, because when you report on that, that's not very helpful, because you don't know which valve, you don't know the location of that valve. So making sure that those activity names are consistent throughout is going to help out in your reporting. We also might want to check our activity types. Maybe the majority of them should be fixed duration in units, and you can flag that. You can take a look at that. Maybe in the with your reporting, you have some mandatory codes that need to be put in so that your reporting remains consistent on each one of your activities. You can check on those mandatory codes, make sure they're filled in, make sure that you've got them in each one of your projects, so that when you do report at a corporate level, you're getting consistent information and accurate information. Maybe you require roles, primary resources, whether you want to check for your cost accounts, your expense categories, and maybe even, check to see what kind of steps you have out there. Now, as with the schedule qualities, we also can set thresholds on this criteria for our business processes. So when I look at my business process criteria, again, I have a very easy layout that I can bring up, and I can define my activity format ID, or for my IDs. I can set my tolerances again. And in this case, we can see where we might get some red and yellow indicators. These are going to be ranges in which I want to, under a certain percentage, I want it to be green. Under or between these two percentages, I want it to be yellow. And then anything above a 31% is going to give me a red. So we've got that ability to do to again, for each project, to set different tolerances if needed, or if they're consistent across the board, have those populate in automatically when we create our project. So when we are planning, that isn't the only time, of course, that you are going to want to be checking your metrics, your quality metrics. So we've also included some metrics that are going to assist you as you are putting progress on your uh, on your projects. So it's going to check things like the last run date. Or I'm sorry, not the last run date. That is not the one I wanted to go to. My finish dates. Is my finish date less than my dated date? When was the last time the project was scheduled? So I can see that over here. I can set up those tolerances that are going to say, hey, this hasn't been scheduled in the last 2 weeks. Take a look at this. It may need to be scheduled. I can look at things like my remaining duration. Is it greater than my original duration for my activity? Is my actual duration greater than my what I budgeted, my budgeted original duration, or my, excuse me, baseline original duration? Um, and then I can compare those. Uh, do I have activities that finish late? Let me know that. Um, do I have my finish date in some cases that is less than our data date? That's not usually something that happens very often. Gonna let you know you need to check on that. Let's take a look and see, why uh, we have this date here. Was it a mistake? Did they anticipate that it's going to actually happen between that time and the next time that we update? We can flag for negative float. We can even look to see if our resources have become over have are over budget at that point in time. Um, Resources, missing actuals. So a whole number of different quality metrics that we can take a look at as we are progressing through our project. We could update and then run P6-QA and see and help us to more quickly identify maybe some of the problems in our project once it's been rescheduled, with those updates in them. So I'm just going to go ahead and open up one of these projects that's been updated, and that's giving me some of these flags here so that we can take a look at those at the activity level as well. And then just going to change my layout here and take a look at some of my updating. So in this one, I've updated my project, and I'm seeing that I do have, some issues that are going on. I have an actual date that's greater than my data date on this one, so I might want to go in and check that out and find out, why that's occurring. What's happened in this case? And of course, in this case, it also finished late. It didn't finish on the time that we thought. It's actually quite late. Instead of on March 4th as planned, it actually finished on March 31st. Helps me to look at that. I may have, in this case on this project sanction, my actual dates are greater than my data date again. Also, um, perhaps I have like on my remaining duration that's greater than my original duration. It's going to flag that for me. So instead of 720 hours that I anticipated this to take, uh, now I have a remaining duration that's been reported to me of 900 hours. Is that a mistake on reporting, or is this actually going to take longer than we had anticipated? Um, of course, it's going to flag my negative float. It's going to give me those red indicators telling me, hey, we're behind on this project. These are the negative float activities that I'm dealing with. In the case of the one where it's actually looks like it's going to run longer, it's going to take longer. I have it's telling me my resource is over budget. So what I planned on my resource, I'm actually uh, over that budgeted amount. I have a case here where I have progress on a particular activity, but I don't have any actuals here. So chances are we've missed putting in our units, our actual units for this particular activity. So as we're going along, we can see all of these and we can self correct as we go along and maybe go back and get more information and shore up our project after we've done an update. Now we've done some other things for our some of our clients for their business processes. One client we have actually wanted to get a project calendar report out. What they wanted to do was we created this dashboard for or this notebook for them. And what they wanted to do is they wanted to find out of the calendars in the project, um, are they consistent across all of them? So they wanted to know, is there a mismatch uh, between all the calendars for the time of day or the day of the weeks and things like that. So not only did we uh, do within the calendar itself, but we did across all of our calendars. So that is something that they specifically requested that we create for them. So we went ahead and did this, and as a result, it now is delivered because once we make an improvement, we keep that in the tool so that other companies, if they have that need, can also use that particular check. So you'll see a lot of, especially business processes that maybe don't make sense to you, but in other cases, maybe they make sense to other companies in what they check. So we can turn these on and off as needed, um, whether you want to check those as your corporate policy or not. So made it very configurable, um, both at a project level as well as at what the tool is going to be checking on each one of your quality metrics there. Um, we also have some statistics that we have created out here. So if I go into my statistics layout, And as I am, let's say I'm updating and I want to see some statistics about my updating. Maybe I've got uh, my statistics on my remaining duration and my greater than my original duration. I want to see how many are completed. Uh, how many are completed and the actual duration was greater than the baseline original duration. How many have finished late? And I can also compare my original duration. So for each one of these validation sets, we have, of course, a notebook that goes along with it, so that you can see how they have measured up. So I'm just going to change this a little bit here and open up this notebook. So my activity ID formats. Here I've got my roles, and I go into I went into business process. That's not giving me what I need. Let's try the statistic one. That might be a little bit more helpful since that's what I'm talking about. So I can see that I have, uh, how many activities do I have that were completed with the actual duration greater than. I can get an accounting of that. I can see, how everything is tracking according to some counts, so I can get some statistics as well. Um, Other statistics that I might want to take a look at and that we've created as we've gone along are some of the statistics when I'm creating my project. Maybe I want to take a look at, and this is, let me go to a project that I'm actually planning. And I want to take a look at, how many milestones I have, how many finish milestones, or how many start milestones, how many finish milestones, how many level of efforts. Sometimes, if we are providing schedules for an outside uh, entity, we might need to fill out some sort of sheet, kind of a header sheet when we submit our projects. This is going to help us get that count much easier than trying to go through and filter them and count them and do things like that. So we've really tried to build in helpful information on all of the quality checks that you could do or that you might want to do on your schedules. So with that, are there any questions before I actually get out of here and go here? It looks like I do have a question. It says, "Is this an add-in to P6 or is it a separate program running on top of P6?" So this is actually a program that runs inside of P6. It is deployed. It is, I guess, what you could say a separate program, but it runs right in P6 for you. It doesn't. It What it's doing is it's reading the database and actually providing those results of reading that database and applying those quality metrics um, on the database itself, and then providing those results as a user defined field in P6. Any other questions while I'm here, so that if you'd like me to show you something, uh, I could do that. And I do see I have a question about sending a screenshot. We are recording this, and so we can uh, send that out if all the technology is good. We also have on our website other recordings as well, and there are some screenshots on our website for P6-QA. So that's emerald-associates.com, and you can go and take a look at the P6-QA uh, page there, and there are all kinds of screenshots as well as videos. Okay, I'm not seeing anything there. So if you do have questions, feel free to chat them in, and we'll get them answered. So with that, I am going to hand back to Ian, and he's just going to wrap it up.
Thanks, Sue. Okay, so just a quick recap. Um, to for P6-QA, you input your validation criteria, you run the analysis, and when you run the analysis, you can do that on a scheduled basis, so it just runs every hour, day, week, month, whatever you want, or you can manually run it. As Sue said, the way that the program works is it essentially runs as a service off to the side of P6. So it reads P6 data, prepares the results, and writes them back to P6. So for the average user, everything is right in P6. They don't have to go out and mess with some other program or export a file and import a file or anything like that. Everything from the user's perspective happens within P6. Now, we do run this on either web services or the Primavera APIs. So if you're in a cloud environment, the web services allow it to run anyway. So, if you're in the Oracle cloud with Primavera, that doesn't prevent you from running P6-QA. Once the analysis is run, the users can fix the problems, and then they can rerun it again just to make sure that everything is fixed. So again, it helps the users fix the problems themselves rather than have to have somebody hound them to do it, or someone to come in and tell them they did a poor job of scheduling, which no one likes to hear. Um, if you want to, once you've rerun the analysis and you're happy with it, you can snapshot the project and you can create dashboards. Um, now, there's all sorts of ways that you can run reporting out of P6. We have a separate tool called P6 Reporter or EP Data Warehouse, which allows you to take all that information and put it in whatever dashboarding you happen to have, whether it's a BI tool or Tableau or any of those kind of tools. So we have an extra tool that'll help you do that. Um, and the idea here is that we can make sure that things are getting better. We can actually take those metrics and we can snapshot them as well. So if you want to look at your dashboard and see how people are improving over time, well, each snapshot will create or will store the information from your P6-QA. So we can look at it and say, okay, these users are improving, their schedules are getting better, these other users are not. Maybe we have an issue that we need to address. Okay, so let me just skip through a couple slides here. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the benefits. So there's a couple of big benefits when you're working with P6-QA. I think the biggest one is it helps your users do a better job and learn how they should be doing things. There's a lot of people out there who do scheduling and have done it for a long time, but don't really know what what a good schedule looks like. What they know is what the managers have told them that they need to do on different projects, and they've slowly improved over time. But maybe they're not doing what we would consider industry best practice. So we can raise the standards that people are working to, reduce reliance on outside consultants, and just give people a sense of accomplishment that they're doing a good job. We can develop better schedules, more schedules with better quality in them. And it happens quickly. So the other thing is you're not taking everything and exporting it, reading it into some other tool, and then running analysis on it. It's all happening right in P6, so it happens in near real time. Um, you don't have to wait to get a review until the end of the month when somebody comes in and reviews your schedule. It just happens automatically as you go. So Sue answered a couple questions. If there's any other questions, feel free to put them in the chat. There's a question section there. You can type in any questions that you might have. Um, as Sue said, if all goes well with the technology, we'll make this recording available to the attendees. We do have previous recordings of this webinar available on our site as well, so you can always go back and watch it and understand a little more, perhaps if you have specific questions. And of course, you can always reach out to us. So I'm going to put Sue's contact information up here in just a minute. Another thing is that, Emerald, we've been around a long time. We are a Primavera reseller and an Oracle partner. We do everything associated with Primavera. We develop tools like the ones you've seen today. We provide services, training, implementation. If you're moving to the cloud, we can help you do that. And we provide training on P6 as well. And here's Sue's contact information. Depending on where you happen to be in the world, you can reach Sue at the number here, um, or we have an office in the Philippines, and Donna, um, who's our rep in the Philippines, is also on the call, so you can reach out to her as well, and we can get you more information. There's a question here, does the tool work with EPPM as well? So yes, because it writes into the P6 database, everything is available both in P6 client and P6 web. So if you're using EPPM, all the same fields are available. You would just create the appropriate views so that everything can be accessed. So absolutely, everything's available because we're using standard Primavera fields to populate all the data. They're either activity codes or user-defined fields that we're using. So everything's available in any of the apps associated with Primavera. Okay, so that wraps up our presentation for today. I'm going to stop the recording, but we'll stay on for a few minutes in case anybody else has any questions. So feel free to put them in the chat or the question section, and we'll make sure we get them answered.